Continuing with my character analysis series of the Zero Division, next up we have the confident and quirky Oetsu Nimaiya, who holds the impressive title of the creator of the Zanpakuto, and he is also referred to as the God of the Sword. He is the third-seated officer of the legendary Zero Division, and his unpredictable behavior makes it difficult to completely feel like you know everything about him. He has a goofy persona and he loves being over the top, as he compensates for the fact that he is a humble and grounded individual. His humility is seen through how he speaks lowly of his own Zanpakuto, despite it being an incredible sword. He deems it to be unfinished because it doesn't meet the definition of a sword, because no sheath can contain it, because of how incredibly sharp it is. So without further delay, let's begin my breakdown and analysis of Oetsu Nimaiya, as we go over all of his appearances within the manga in order to understand everything that we can about him. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. Oetsu Nimaiya makes his debut appearance within chapter 516 of the manga. He is a tall individual with thick black hair that is shaved off to the side, and strangely enough he has dyed the sides of his head green. Another iconic feature of his appearance are his sunglasses that he is rarely seen without. Out of all of the Zero Division members, his appearance is the most quirky and out of place, as he wears a standard black Shinigami Shihakusho but with a white sleeveless puffer jacket over it. This serves as his captain's coat, as he has the Royal Guard insignia on the back of this jacket. Like I had mentioned, Nimaiya is unpredictable, as there are two sides to his character. One where he is goofy, humorous, and he is all in your face, but contrastingly, when he is taking part in battle, he is savage and ruthless, and this is demonstrated when he kills off several members of the Schutzstaffel all at once. Even during his battle against Askin, he made a split-second decision that was very risky for his life when he had cut one of the main arteries in his throat in order to counter Askin's death-dealing ability. Like a lot of the characters that Kubo designs, Nimaiya is very cool and mysterious, and if it wasn't for him, then Ichigo wouldn't know the truth about his Zanpakuto. He was present when Ichigo had to confront Old Man Zangetsu, after Nimaiya had told Ichigo whether if Old Man Zangetsu reminds him of somebody that he had recently met. It was thanks to his invaluable help that Ichigo was able to activate the true form of Zangetsu. I'll talk more about the role that Nimaiya plays in helping Ichigo later on in the video. As for his backstory, like a lot of the members of the Zero Division, very little is known about them, aside from the notable achievement that they had accomplished which had them recognized by the Soul King. When it comes to Oetsu Nimaiya, he was credited with having created the Zanpakuto. After the Soul King had recognized this incredible feat, Nimaiya was promoted into the Zero Division. During the Thousand Year Blood War arc, after the first invasion of the Quincy, the Zero Division arrived within the Soul Society in order to help the Gote 13. He doesn't say much, while the other members of the Zero Division state that they are here to take Ichigo and the other Shinigami to the Soul King's palace in order to heal them and to help them train for the return of the Quincy. We are properly introduced to Nimaiya in chapter 522 after Ichigo and Renji arrive in his domain. The two of them are surprised when spotlights shine down on them and a voice yells out to bow down their heads as they are holding them too high. He introduces himself as the creator of the Zanpakuto, along with a strange rhyming rap, as we learn that Nimaiya is clearly a wannabe urban rapper. His over-the-top greeting leaves Ichigo and Renji quite stunned. He raises Ichigo's hands up in the air and does a strange clapping greeting with him, as Ichigo finds it difficult to keep up with his vibe. When Nimaiya realizes that Ichigo and Renji are insulting him, he asks whether if they want to go home. They then bow and state that they'd like to stay. He then tells them to bow their heads straight to the ground, as he takes a picture of them in this hilarious face-planted position. He laughs at their expense with the large group of females that he has in his palace. After having enough of his antics, one of his assistants called Mira instructs Ichigo and Renji to follow her as they arrive in his real palace, which appears to be a battered wooden cabin placed in the middle of nowhere near the edge of a cliff. We learn that Nimaiya had built that extravagant area because he found it difficult to accept that this is where he lives. After Ichigo, Renji and Kon arrive at Nimaiya's true domain, Kon is pretty upset and says that he wants to return to the other place. Nimaiya is glad that at least Kon understands where he is coming from. Ichigo and Renji then fall into a dark pit, as Nimaiya asks them whether if it was strange that they had met no Shinigami on their way to his palace. All of the women that they had met in Nimaiya's fake palace were in fact all Zanpakuto. He finds it odd that Ichigo and Renji cannot tell the difference between a Shinigami and a Zanpakuto. He questions what on earth is wrong with them. He then brings out their damaged Zanpakuto and refers to them as heartless jerks who don't know how to look after them. He smashes both of their Zanpakutos into each other as he states that Zanpakuto that aren't properly loved are very brittle. Nimaiya challenges both Ichigo and Renji to get out of the pit that they are fallen into, as they are surrounded by angered Zanpakuto. Nimaiya then introduces himself for the third time as he states his name and declares that he doesn't make Zanpakuto for scrubs. With Ichigo and Renji in a pretty desperate situation, Nimaiya has no sympathy for them, as we firsthand see how unpredictable he truly is, as he shifts from this goofy individual into this very serious demeanor. He tells them that they are surrounded by what is known as the ultimate Zanpakuto that can become anything. He refers to these beings as Asauchi. Nimaiya reveals that he has created every single one of the Asauchi that are used by the Shinigami today, thus explaining why he is referred to as the Blade God. Nimaiya states that the Asauchi are angry at both Ichigo and Renji, and it isn't because of the way that they fight or the way that they swing their blades. He proposes whether if they have been using their blades as a tool, or whether if they have been interacting with it like a subordinate, or even relying on it like a partner, or even treating it like a family member or a close friend. Their treatment of their own Zanpakuto is reflected by the anger of the Asauchi, as it reveals that this is how their Zanpakuto feel about them. He then challenges them to face off against the Asauchi, as he wants to see who is stronger, the Shinigami or a Zanpakuto. In chapter 527, we cut back to Nimaiya's training of Ichigo and Renji, as 3 days have just passed. He is impressed that Renji was able to submit an Asauchi to his will, but Ichigo on the other hand has failed. He has little sympathy for his plight, as he deems him to be a failure. Ichigo wants to continue going on, but Nimaiya states that he wasn't chosen by any of the Asauchi. No matter how hard he tries, it's not going to change anything. He tells Ichigo to give it up, as he declares Renji to be a Shinigami while Ichigo is far from one. He tells him that it's time for him to go home, telling him to never return to the Soul Society because it is a place for a Shinigami, and if Ichigo has no Zanpakuto, then he is no different to an ordinary human, and he has no right to be within the Soul Society. Nimaiya says that he isn't going to fix Zangetsu, as he sends Ichigo back to the real world. After Ichigo leaves, Nimaiya states that he isn't there yet. In a way, he is impressed with Ichigo, as he states that he doesn't know what it means for him to have come this far without having a proper Asauchi. It is for this reason that Ichigo needs to go back to his roots, and he has to learn about his past. Even if knowing his roots means that he can never return to the Soul Society, it is important for him to learn the truth about his life and the way that he was born. In chapter 529, Nimaiya speaks with Renji, as he states that he is surprised that he did not object to his decision to return Ichigo back to the world of the living. He is certain that even Renji had noticed that no matter how hard Ichigo had tried, he would not have been able to submit an Asauchi to his will in his current condition. Nimaiya states that he knows the whereabouts of every Asauchi that he has ever forged. Every Shinigami is given an Asauchi. They then shape it into their own Zanpakuto through continuous training. This is the basics of the relationship that exists between a Shinigami and their Zanpakuto. No Shinigami since the beginning of the Soul Society has had their Zanpakuto awakened without an Asauchi being forged first. Nimaiya states that it was obvious that this method of training wasn't going to work for Ichigo. Before he can return and have an Asauchi submit to his will, he needs to learn the whereabouts of his soul. After Ichigo learns the truth about his mother, Nimaiya sends Mira to the real world in order to bring Ichigo back to his palace. We learn that Nimaiya had every intention to bring Ichigo back into his palace after the duration of one night, and if nothing had changed after one night, then it would be useless to continue with Ichigo's training. Nimaiya notices a change within Ichigo, as he now tasks him to submit an Asauchi to his will. He then shockingly sees that every single Asauchi kneels before Ichigo and are willing to accept him as their master. After picking an Asauchi, Nimaiya states that he will personally reforge his Zanpakuto for him. He then takes Ichigo deeper into his palace as he reveals to him the area where his Zanpakuto will be reforged, telling Ichigo that this is where he will say goodbye to Zangetsu. He then summons his bodyguards as he begins forging Ichigo's new Zanpakuto. He tells Ichigo that he had taken his shades off so that he could see the color of the flame while he is forging the blade. He questions whether if Ichigo knows the reason why his Asuchi had turned white the moment that he had touched it, and why is it that it had started to resemble the hollow that is within Ichigo. Nimaiya then reveals to Ichigo that his Asuchi is in fact the hollow that is within him, as he states that Ichigo's Zanpakuto is his inner hollow. We learn that the hollow white had entered Ichigo's body and had fused with his Shinigami powers, and it was at that moment that it had become his Zanpakuto. This means that Old Man Zangetsu has been masquerading as his Zanpakuto this entire time. He then tells Ichigo that Old Man Zangetsu is in fact Yhwach from 1,000 years ago. He resembles the enemy because he is a manifestation of Ichigo's inner Quincy power, which he had inherited from his mother. After Ichigo speaks with Old Man Zangetsu, Nimaiya finishes forging his Zanpakuto. After Ichigo grabs the handle of his Zanpakuto and pours his soul into it, a huge explosion erupts, as we see Ichigo with a new dual-bladed version of Zangetsu. He then asks Ichigo what he thinks of his new Zanpakuto, thus concluding his involvement with assisting Ichigo in learning the truth about his past and helping him to reforge and acquire the true power of Zangetsu. This was a pivotal role that Nimaiya played within the story, and it was through his character that we understood and learnt more about Ichigo's powers and abilities, as well as the real identity of Old Man Zangetsu and why he resembles Yhwach from 1,000 years ago. We then see Nimaiya again the following day after Yhwach, Hashwat and Uryu arrive at the Soul King's palace. After Kiryu Hikifune traps the Quincy within her cage of life, Nimaiya confronts them as he draws out his Zanpakuto Sayafushi. We learn that Sayafushi is kept in a sword tank, which is a large tank of jelly-like liquid. This is because his blade is too sharp and its edge is too smooth for any sheath to contain it. Nimaiya was able to cut down Gerard Valkyrie with a single swing of his blade. He then deflects several attacks from Lil Barrow, before also cutting him down with another swing of his blade. He then quickly impales Pernida through the head with his sword as he makes quick work of the Schutzstaffel. After pulling his blade out, he then cuts down Askin, but he only ends up slashing Askin's throat. He states that Sayafushi is too much of a powerful blade to wield against normal opponents, so he is looking forward to using it against Yhwach, but he is surprised to learn that Askin had survived his attack. Then using his ability to death dealing, he explains that it allows him to control the lethal dose of substances, as Nimaiya ends up collapsing. He states that he has made the blood within Nimaiya's body lethal to him. In response, within the matter of a split second, Nimaiya cuts his own throat in order to let his blood pour out. Askin states that it is effortless, because he will die of one of two ways, either through blood loss or through the lethal dosage of his own blood. But thankfully, Nimaiya has Korinji replace the blood within his body with his hot spring water. He then cuts down Askin as he turns his attention to Yhwach. Nimaiya reveals that the Royal Guard have very little information on Yhwach's abilities, so before anything he needs to cut Yhwach's arms off and then go from there. But before he can do anything, he is surprised to see Yhwach utilize his ability Ashvalen to revive his Schutzstaffel. While in a shocked state as he wonders how on earth the elite soldiers of the Quincy are reviving, he learns that Ashvalen redistributes the power between the Quincy so that Yhwach can revive those that he chooses. It is here when Nimaiya is eventually shot through the head by Lil Barrow's bullets, thus concluding his involvement within the manga, as it concludes his involvement within the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. As somebody who is referred to as the creator of the Zanpakuto, it was pretty disappointing that we didn't get to see more of him, but I do feel like he got the respect that he deserved through how he had single-handedly taken out all of the Schutzstaffel. It goes to show when given the opportunity, the Zero Division does live up to the hype. I mean, Nimaiya was able to do all of this without even revealing his Shikai or Bankai. He wields the sharpest blade within the entire series, the only blade that does not have a sheath. Sayafushi is one of my favorite Zanpakuto within Bleach. It is a sword that cannot be cut by anything, but can also cut through anything. Now, while we don't know the status of Nimaiya by the end of the manga, we do learn that he is confirmed to be alive within the Can't For Your Own World light novels. If you want to learn more about the fates of the Zero Division and some shocking facts about their leader, then check out my character analysis on Ichibe. But as for Oetsu Nimaiya, let me know what you thought of the creator of the Zanpakuto. Aside from his strange and quirky personality, he is a ruthless fighter and one who is not to be taken lightly. Being one of the strongest Shinigami, Nimaiya has left a lasting impression on all of us, and this is without him having revealed his Shikai or his Bankai. So what did you think about this fascinating character? Definitely continue the discussion in the comments and let me know if he impressed you or left you wanting to see more of him. Once again, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next Bleach character analysis video. if you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.